Hey guys, Lex here. Today we'll finally start the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Other than the DLC escapades, the last time I recorded this was back in September, so for me it's been over 10 months since the last trial. Anyway, let's go.
Standing here in the bright sunshine, looking out over the vast ocean. Those days in London seem like a dream, but I do miss my time in England's vast capital. You know, he's flourished into a truly wonderful lawyer. I've no doubt that at this very moment, he's fighting some noble cause in court.
So far the only trial we've seen since Satsado left was the bird one.
Forgive me for taking so long to come to visit you. My life has been such a whirlwind since I returned. And no one could have predicted what has happened. Just 2 months after arriving home.
I find myself faced with another awful crime. Yeah, best girl.
So I came here today to ask something of you. Tomorrow, I shall be standing in court. For the only time in my life. As a lawyer.
What? No, not best girl.
So please, I ask for your guidance. Kazuma-sama.
He's dead too. Episode 1, The Adventure of the Blossoming Attorney. So this is her. I thought it was someone else from the screenshots I've seen. 13th of August, 8:26 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendants Antechamber number 3. Here I am again after 9 months, at the Supreme Court of Judicature of Japan. I feel so nervous, but I must steel my nerves and find a way to compose myself. Good. You're here. Doesn't do for a lawyer to be late. Oh yes, good morning, sir. I hardly recognize you. Cut a fine figure, counsel. But you look as white as a sheet, and those wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Oh dear. Truth is, I'm so incredibly nervous I feel utterly nauseated. I almost wish that I'd never been born. Goodness, not the sort of thing a father hopes to hear from his daughter, I must say. Eugene Mikatoba, professor of medicine at Imperial Yume University. A man who earlier in his life traveled to Great Britain to study the latest advances in forensic medical science. And of course, my brilliant father. Excuse me? Would I be correct in thinking that you're to be my lawyer in court today? Yes, that's right, miss. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to represent me. I swear on my life. It's a complete fabrication, this whole thing. Remember me. Born the same year as I, and my greatest friend. Though unusual for a woman in our time, she works at the university research laboratory helping my father. Sadly, she's the defendant in today's trial, accused of committing a truly awful murder. You feeling alright? Since we started talking, you seem, well, to have become a little flushed. Oh my! Oh, well, it's just that you look so gallant and dashing. Sorry. And when I fall under your intense gaze, it makes me feel rather bashful. Oh, goodness, I don't think she knows. She hasn't realized who I am.
Would seem our little plan for this trial is going to work.
Oh, what do you mean, Professor Mikotoa?
If even your best friend can't see through the disguise, I think we can relax.
Disguise? Yes, I've never tried dressing this way before, of course, so I wasn't sure how convincing it would be. But this does make me feel a little relieved, as you say, Father. Father? Hmm? What? Is that you, Susato? I'm so sorry I didn't say something sooner, Ray. It's just that... Oh, what are you doing? What's going on? What? That varsity uniform, that varsity cap, that varsity cape, that varsity badge. Look at you. You look for all the world just like a student of the Imperial Yume University, a male student. I'm so glad you think so. It means all my preparations have been worthwhile. I woke at 4 this morning to make a start. But I don't understand. Why are you dressed like that? Well, you see...
It was the only way. The only way she would be permitted into the Supreme Court to take on the defense in this trial.
Why? My defense? Never before in my life have I felt so frustrated at having been born into this body. Courts in Japan are barred to women. We're not even allowed to set foot inside the courtroom, despite the fact that the laws of the land apply to all people, male and female alike. But women are forbidden. Just for today, I'll be leaving my true self in the courtroom door, so that I can act as your lawyer. Oh, Susato, you'd go to such lengths for me? Of course, you're my greatest friend. Just worry that I shan't be the lawyer you deserve. Oh no, I have complete faith in you. Ray. So strange though. I mean, you're such an accomplished judicial assistant already. And yet just because you're a woman, what a wretched reason. I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed into court? You're so gallant and dashing. Ray, please don't look at me like that with those flushed cheeks and doting eyes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just, you really do look so dashing. Yes, you mentioned that once or twice.
You should be pleased. It means you look convincing as a man.
I am pleased, I think. It certainly helped to bolster my confidence today. Ray, you're managing to put on a brave face in all this, but I could see through it. Notice how your shoulders are slumped and how you're trembling ever so slightly. Susato! You do believe me, don't you? I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I mean, murder? Of course. You have nothing to worry about. Your conscience is perfectly clean. Isn't that right? Yes. Yes it is. Perfectly clean. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind about your innocence. So I'll stand by you until the bitter end in this trial. Whatever happens, I'll always be on your side. Because that's what it means to be a defense lawyer. It means so much to me, Susato.
Defendant, counsel. Court is now about to begin. Proceed to the courtroom at once. I keep trying to do a British accent. You should go in at once, Ray. If you're late, the judge won't hesitate to pronounce you guilty.
Oh, step aside! I don't think I've ever seen her run so fast.
Well, Susato, you've certainly surprised your father. Going to such lengths to be admitted into the courtroom, and with no prior experience of being a lawyer.
There was simply no other way. That's all there is to it. But father, you haven't told her, have you? I mean, I'm right in assuming that Ray doesn't know how it came to this?
Yes, quite right. I've kept that information from her. It would only worry her if she found out that no other lawyer would agree to take her case. I didn't want to burden her with that.
And is it true? The reason why every other lawyer is refusing to take to the case? Is it really because of who the victim was?
I should be making a move now too. As you know, law isn't my field, but I'll do what I can to support my student.
Thank you, Father. I'm Sasato Mikotowa, judicial assistant. 8 months ago, I accompanied a student of law on a study trip to Great Britain. But 2 months ago, due to unforeseen circumstances, I found myself back in Japan. How many times have I wished that he were here, I wonder. Still, I have no choice now but to steel myself for the trial ahead. Wish me luck, Naruhodo-san.
"13th of August, 9 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Courtroom number 1. Oh yeah! Ouchie! The court is in session to hear the trial of Ray Membami.
The prosecution is fully ready to proceed, Your Excellency.
Defense counsel, are you ready? Yes, Your Excellency. We are ready.
Ready!
Ah, yes, counsel. According to your registration details, your name is, Ryutaro Naruhodo? Is that correct?
Sorry?
Oh yes, I had to come up with a suitable male name for you for this little venture. So I'm afraid to say I simply put down the first name that sprung to mind. Oh, well, counsel.
Yes, that's right, that's me. Yes, I am Ryutaro, who was vowed to uphold the pride of the great Naruhodo clan.
Seems Ryutaro may need to consider how better to uphold this manly act first, not overdo it. And those wild, wide eyes aren't doing you any favors either. Just relax and listen.
Naruhodo. A fresh face in this courtroom, if I'm not mistaken. But the name Naruhodo, would that perchance be...
You may be thinking of Ryunosuke Naruhodo, currently in Britain as part of a study program. This is,
his cousin!
That's right. Ryutaro here has been studying in the provinces, but was called to the capital for this trial. I assure you, in matters of law, his knowledge rivals that of any of Tokyo's preeminent lawyers.
Any of them? What a pitiful situation. Having been rejected by every lawyer in the capital, the accused has had to call in a country boy. How dare you! Sasato is every bit as skilled and dashing as any of your Tokyo attorneys. I won't have you making fun of her.
Her?
Oh, please be careful, Ray. What an unrefined tomboy we have here. But I wonder, is your gallant and dashing lawyer up to the challenge of defending you? His wide, skittish eyes very much suggest that he is not. I'm so nervous. Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand what Naruhodo-san goes through. Like it or not, eyes are wont to flit.
The case to be heard on this day is a matter of great significance to our national interests. In fact, it would be reasonable to assume that the outcome of this trial may well affect the very future of our empire.
Just like the trial 9 months ago. And yet, proceedings of such importance, we have this unknown yokel by the dock. Dear me.
Perhaps this would be an appropriate moment for me to assess the defense and determine whether you are sufficiently competent to practice in this courtroom. Their voices are too similar. 9 months ago, when a certain other Naruhodo stood where you're standing now. This same judge tested him as well. Even though he was just a student at the time, not even of law, he passed the test with flying colors. For a trained and experienced judicial assistant like you, this will be easy. So, counsel, do you consent to answering some simple questions?
Alright, it's time to prove myself.
Oh.
Yes, Your Excellency, but please do make them simple.
Very well. To start with, you will state the name of the victim.
Phew, this one's simple. I couldn't forget that if I tried.
What's the matter?
Now that I'm standing in his shoes, I'm starting to understand something else Naruto-san goes through. Like it or not, minds are want to blank.
It's not surprising, really. It's your first time in this position, and in that guise. Even a bright spark like you is bound to flicker and falter a little under the circumstances.
Oh dear, this is a dismal failure.
Don't fret. You need only use knowledge you've gained as a judicial assistant to overcome the problem.
Of course, the court record. Yes, the answer will be amongst all the key information about the case, the court record.
That's right, just use RB to open the court record. I don't have an RB yet. Then you will need to flip to the People section with RB. And don't take too long over it. His Excellency is watching you closely.
Take as long as I want. Alright, check the courtroom record with RB. That's what information all I need will be.
Post-mortem report. Time of death just after 2 p.m. Victim, Giselle Brett, female, British. Time of death, 11th of August, around 2 p.m. Ascertained by examination and witness statements. Cause of death, single, deep stab wound from behind, piercing a lung and resulting in a fatal hemorrhage. Death would have occurred within minutes. Notes. Extreme meiosis. Pupil constriction was observed in the victim in both eyes. People. Eugene. 43 years old. Best friend. Defendant. 16. 25. Victim. British student. Taketsushi Ouchi. I'm waiting, counsel. What is the name of the victim in this case? Oops.
The victim in this case is yes. Prosecutor Taketsushi Ouchi.
What?
Why does such a triumphant cry of yes? Are you threatening to kill me? He seems angry.
And you're surprised? Did you consult the court record? Let's look through it carefully.
Oh yes, I did, of course. I looked at everyone on file, and I chose the person whose features appeared to be the most deathly.
I must say, this most unusual methodology of yours leaves me almost speechless. It occurs to me with renewed certainty that reading the information carefully is vitally important. I strongly recommend it.
Oh dear, I simply can't ignore that imploring look. Your Excellency, please allow me to amend my answer.
Very well, I will excuse this incorrect response given your wide-eyed state of panic. What is the name of the victim in this case? Well, since I didn't lose points, let's try Mikitoba.
The victim in this case is none other than Professor Eugene Mikitoba.
What? Well, to be written off by one's own child.
Father, you seem suddenly so much older and warier than you were mere moments ago.
Because of you, clearly. The judge is asking for the victim's name, the person who was killed in this case. Look through the information in the court record again, carefully, before you kill me, for mercy's sake.
Oh dear, I simply can't ignore this disapproving look. Your Excellency.
Oh. Achievement. Father frustrated.
Your Excellency, please allow me to amend my answer.
Very well, I will excuse this incorrect response given your wide-eyed state of panic. What is the name of the victim in this case? Zale Brett.
Yes!
Yeah, she says yes too.
The name of the victim who lost her life in this case is Miss Giselle Brett. Giselle Brett. I'll kill her.
A name that will never be forgotten in the courtrooms of our country, I'm sure. Correct. And being a member of our empire's judiciary, you will be well aware of the significance of that name.
Huh.
So, let me pose another simple question. As you know, Miss Brett was visiting student from the Empire of Great Britain. Why then is her name incredibly associated with our own empire's judicial history? Obviously, you won't have forgotten the case from 9 months ago. But if it's proving hard to recall the finer points, everything you need is included in the court record. It's been longer than 9 months for me.
Obviously, I still remember. That was the start of everything. Giselle Brett. Behind the woman student persona was the face-off.
A killer.
Yes!
9 months ago, a visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial University was killed. And the culprit was Giselle Brett.
Yes, she was a killer. At the time, our country had just signed a new treaty with the Empire of Great Britain. And it was at the midst of the delicate diplomatic situation that the incident occurred. An Englishman, Dr. John H. Wilson, was shot dead.
I believe he was an associate of yours, Professor Mikatoba.
Yes, I was indebted to the man. He'd been my mentor when I went to London to study forensic medicine. Indeed, it was I who invited him here to Japan as a visiting professor at the university. Naturally, the murder of an Englishman on our soil was a matter the government wished to resolve rapidly. Indeed it was, which is why a secret trial was conducted here in the Supreme Court. A student of Imperial University was arrested of suspicion of murder. A second-year English language student by the name of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. With the help of his best friend, a student lawyer, the accused conducted his own defense and exposed the despicable crime committed by Miss Giselle Brett. Miss Brett eventually admitted her crime. However, when questioned about the motive that drove her to take Dr. Wilson's life, she gave no satisfactory answer before the trial reached its conclusion.
Immediately after the trial, the British government brought its consular jurisdiction into play. We were unable to sentence Miss Brett according to our empire's laws. It was decided she would be removed to Shanghai, China instead. Why Shanghai?
There is a British consular court there. Correct. I oversaw the negotiations personally. The date of her transfer to Shanghai was finally settled upon only last week. All that remained of our empire's obligations was to see the woman safely on board a steamship.
And yet, the very day before her departure, the Englishwoman was killed. Only the day before. I'd do it again!
That will do. I'm satisfied that the counsel for the defense is sufficiently capable of representing the defendant.
Oh. Thank you, Your Excellency. Over the first hurdle.
Now, a summary of the incident, if you please. Prosecutor Ouchie.
Praise the sun.
As is your wish, Your Excellency.
The repugnant crime took place on the 11th of August, in broad daylight. On the outskirts of the Imperial capital under a bright blue sky, at a secluded bathing spot by the sea. Why? The incident occurred inside a small beach hut erected for bathers to rest or change their clothes. The cause of death was a single stab wound to the posterior abdomen that pierced the victim's lung, an injury which proved lethal. There were two persons alone together in the beach hut at the time of the victim's death, Miss Brett in her bathing attire, and the accused Ray Membame. Accordingly, there can be no doubt of the accused's guilt, especially when we consider she had a powerful motive. The
police arrived rapidly at the scene and promptly arrested the young lady. Well, that extraordinary description of events leaves me somewhat lost for words, I must say.
That's certainly true. The prosecution's summary is full of words that raise an awful lot of questions. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about
being alone.
You're clearly exaggerating. Powerful motive is blatant overstatement.
It's the yokel boy using long words he doesn't fully understand.
Beg your pardon?
No matter. Let us put us accused, shall we? Remember me, son. You are a research assistant at Imperial Yume University, I believe.
Yes, I am. I'm working with Professor Mikatoba in his laboratory at the moment.
I can confirm that. The defendant is an excellent assistant with a strong sense of responsibility. Fascinating to hear. Now, another question. Prior to your work with Professor Mikatoba, whose research were you assisting then?
I was studying under Dr. John H. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson? The visiting English professor who was murdered by Miss Brett 9 months ago? She did it. The accused had a deep-seated respect for her former mentor, Dr. Wilson. Is that not true?
Yes. Dr. Wilson was a wonderful man.
Interesting. Then tell the court what deep-seated feelings you had towards the Englishwoman who killed him.
Well, obviously I was filled with hatred for what she'd done. A powerful hatred. I'd kill him again. Oh no, Ray. Be careful what you're saying.
The motive was revenge. Plain and simple, Your Excellency. Well, it was clearly a trap all along.
Oh, wicked of him to use Ray's undying respect for her former mentor against her like that. I must find out more details and something we could use to bolster our defense. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution counsel on what he said about
why were they taking a bath?
If I may, Prosecutor Ouchie.
What do you want, you fresh-faced young yokel student?
I wonder, could you explain, please? You mentioned a bathing spot.
My apologies. Clearly my modernity has confused the poor country bumpkin's simple mind. Bathing spots are the very latest trend in health practices from the West. We are told that bathing in the water of the ocean is curative, therapeutic, and excellent for the skins.
Oh, that's not what I meant. I was referring to the fact that Miss Brett had, to all intents and purposes, been found guilty of murder. Why would a known criminal have been relaxing by the sea?
For old time's sake, I believe.
What? Sorry?
Miss Brett was to depart for Shanghai the following day. Her final wish, as it were, was to enjoy a day at our country's wonderful coast. And the British Embassy put extreme pressure on our government's to comply.
But on what grounds would we agree to such a request?
Because, as usual, our government is unable to stand up to foreign powers. In matters of diplomacy, it seems we don't even have the courage to decline the whims of a known criminal.
Don't look at me, Professor. It was the government who granted the permission, not I. Although I would have done it anyway. In any case, it was decided that with a dedicated detective on duty, nothing could go wrong.
But something did go wrong.
But in fact, the murder took place. You said don't look at me. It was the young student girl who did it, not I. No one has proved that yet.
I wouldn't provoke the man if you don't need to.
But it's so fun. At this stage, I need to gather more information, I think. As a lawyer, I really ought to pick up the prosecution's counsel on what he said about...
Oh, okay.
Son? Yes, what is it, Naruhodo-san? really starting to wish we'd named my alias Ryotaro Susato. Please tell the court why exactly you were present at the bathing spot with the victim in the first place, and why you were alone with her. Oh, no, that's not true. It wasn't like that at all. There were other people present. A detective who was guarding Miss Brett for starters. Was just asked to accompany Miss Brett as a companion, that's all.
But let us be clear. At the moment of her death, you were alone together with the victim in the hut. You and no one else.
Huh?
Truth is, there's only one reason this young woman accompanied Miss Brett on her bathing sojourn. It was the accused's last chance to take the victim's life.
No.
Because, as we know, the following day we would see Miss Brett extradited to the British authorities in Shanghai. The accused would never have an opportunity to dispatch her again.
Kindly refrain from conjecture, counsel.
I believe we have a clear picture of the incident now. Despite her guilt being determined 9 months ago, Miss Brett managed to avoid incarceration, instead continuing her research work at the university. Obviously, over that period, she and Ray would have encountered each other on a number of occasions.
Seeing the murderer of the mentor for whom she had such great respect enjoying undeserved liberty.
Yes, even if it was only temporary until Miss Brett's extradition to Shanghai. You can hardly blame Ray for her feelings of anger and resentment.
Poor Ray.
So, Your Excellency, if you'd be so kind to pursue this exhibit, a photographic print that shows the scene of the crime immediately following the grim incident. Yes, thank you, Counsel. A tragic image. As you can clearly see, there's nowhere within the hut that anyone could have hidden. The dress? The court will accept this print as evidence. Cool. As I understand it then, the victim and the defendant were alone inside the beach hut at this time. This is deeply troubling, I must say. The finger of guilt points firmly at the defendant. Well, Your Excellency, naturally the prosecution has much more to its case.
Oh.
We intend to prove the accused's appalling actions beyond all possible contention. To that end, I can confirm that we have multiple witnesses to the crime and damning evidence.
Witnesses? But who?
One of whom, I might add, is a highly respected police detective. Who's a what's-its? I assure you, the testimony of these witnesses will leave no room for doubt. Detective, something or another, I forgot his name. Hosanaga? Very well then, Counsel. Bring forth your witnesses. I, Takatsuchi, Ouchi, have been waiting for this moment.
Sorry.
Oh yes, I haven't forgotten that trial 9 months ago here in this very courthouse, when that irreverent little student boy utterly humiliated me.
Ryunosuke Naruhodo!
What, yeah?
This insult to the Ouchi family name will never be forgotten.
You've become conceited with age, Counsel, but the old have to stand aside to make way for the new. Die. It's the way of the world. May you never forget that.
Ah! My hair.
Strike the head of a samurai whose top knot has been cut, and the bell of cultural enlightenment tolls. Yes, that fateful day my former self died.
To the start of your own mini-Meiji revolution, modernizing as well, Counsel.
Silence! Since I swore revenge back then, there has been a minor miracle atop my head. Observe the ouchie growth. You see, You see this seed of hope sprouting forth from the barren expanse of my crown.
You think that tiny growth is trying to tell me something? Afraid I can't really see. Where's the hope exactly? I said silence.
Today, I face another yokel student of the Naruhodo clan. Well, I will vanquish you, and my victory will be fertilizer for the seed of hope atop my head. You have been warned. With that, the prosecution calls the witnesses to the stand. Looks like the stakes are high on both sides in this trial. Prosecution and defense each has much to lose.
Haircut is hardly comparable to Ray's life.
Oh shit. Oh god, so many voices.
Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court.
Chief Inspector Satoru Hosanaga, Imperial Police Bureau, and I'm in disguise, obviously, so I could go undetected. And I am, well, the next big thing in books, an author renowned throughout the capital, in fact, yes.
Soon to be sold out, the satirical I Am a Kid, a sensational success by Sosuke Natsume. Oh my goodness. Struggling student from the provinces, please, you needn't be on off me. I needn't?
It's only natural that you'd feel nervous in my presence, but all of you, please relax. Call me Sasuke, even.
Yes. What on earth is Saseki-san doing here?
Tread carefully, Sasato. That author fellow knows you from your time in London, doesn't he? If he exposes you for who you really are, this will be over before it's begun.
Yes, of course, I know. I presume Saseki-san won't have forgotten about me. I could certainly never forget him. Although he does seem to have changed somewhat in the 6 months or so that it's been since I last saw him. And as for Inspector Hosanaga, that amazing outfit is hard to believe.
Oh, it's a turtle. Do I have something on my face? A turtle on your head.
Well, your glasses are on, although they don't seem to be helping you see. Thank goodness he hasn't recognized me either.
Ah, I suppose it's this disguise, is it? I thought that appearing here in the clothes I was wearing at the time would make for a more faithful testimony. It is my guiding principle to carry out all testimonies flawlessly. Very well. I can appreciate why an Imperial Police Bureau detective might have been present. But what business did a writer such as yourself have being at the scene, Saseki-san?
Well, you see, I have been asked that day to give a lecture on the morning of the incident in the Imperial Yume University's Grand Lecture Hall, no less. At Yume University? After the lecture, I had a very pleasant conversation with a researcher from the medical science department. A professor over there, in fact. I thought, with Professor Mikatowa.
Yes, that's right. I was arranged by one of the newspapers. They wanted some story or the other about the 2 former students who'd studied in Great Britain. Of course, being a renowned author, the press never leaves me alone.
They secretly spy, snap shots, scribble stories, and scoop on my privacy. As you can see, the conversation was written up in this newspaper here. Read it at your leisure, my provincial struggling student friend. I have plenty of copies. Thank you very much. He practically threw the paper at me.
Sosuke Natsume article has been added. Anyway, following my interview with the professor, the lady in question appeared and made a very unexpected announcement. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. Those were her words. As I explained before, Miss Brett was never taken into custody. She continued to work in my laboratory, under strict surveillance, of course. At which utterance, the university immediately contacted the government to seek guidance. And the response was, permit Miss Brett to go as long as the detective accompanies her. The detective I am at liberty to divulge was me, Chief Inspector Satoru Hosanaga.
Thereby, the entire party departed cordially for the seaside, it seems.
It was extremely challenging to clear all other members of the public from the vicinity of the beach. But fortunately, I am at peak physical fitness at the moment, so yeah, I was able to carry out my duty flawlessly.
Oh my. Inspector, well, you do have something on your face now.
How unsightly. I do apologize.
Does that mean that you went to the beach too, Father?
No. Fortunately, I had work to finish off. But unfortunately, of course, it meant that, as my assistant, Ray was invited to take my place. Of course, being a renowned author, I didn't like to decline the invitation.
But if only I had, I'd never have seen that awful sight. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret.
Very well. I must ask you to present your formal testimony to the court. Let me take a look at the evidence. See, someone could hide behind this. Just break through and stab her in the back. Hide here. Your footprints. The swan is dead. It's a double homicide. Let's see the article. Can't click on anything. Very well. I must now ask you to present your formal testimony in court. You will give an account of all you witnessed on your impromptu excursion to the coast. Of course, Your Excellency. Relentlessly racked by remorse and regret I am. Witness testimony. The witnessed scene. On the day of the incident, I was ordered on a special surveillance assignment in this disguise. I just managed to catch the crab when I suddenly heard a catheter wall from behind me. I ran into the beach at once, where I found a pair in question.
Yes, that young girl was astride the Englishwoman's dagger in hand as she stabbed wildly.
I saw blood on the blade. It proved to me that she'd stabbed the victim multiple times. Got him. Indeed, it does appear from this testimony that both witnesses here present saw it. The very moment of this heinous crime.
What?
Now, if you will recall, I promised evidence as well.
What phrase did I use again?
Ah, yes, that was it. Damning evidence. What have you there, counsel? A so-called fountain pen, is it? Correct, Your Excellency. I found it at the scene whilst examining the body. It appears that her dying moments with her final outs of strength. The victim clutched a piece of evidence that would positively identify her killer.
What?
Your Excellency, if you would cast your eyes over the photographic print of the crime scene once more. Oh, goodness me. Yes, the victim is clearly grasping something quite deliberately in her hand. That's right, the fountain pen. And if you would kindly examine the pen, Your Excellency. Oh. The owner's initials have been engraved into the ebonite barrel. R.M. Remember me. The initials of the defendant.
No!
The fountain pen will be admitted immediately as critical evidence. Fountain pen has been added.
So, have I omitted anything? Decisive testimony and damning evidence. There's a bright blue sky outside the courthouses today. Perfect weather to ascribe guilt, I feel. I don't understand. The prosecutor ouchie of 9 months ago had none of this man's poise.
Counsel for the defense, you may begin your cross-examination now. Wake up! Naruhodo-san.
Who? Naruhodo? That means... Oh, yes, me.
Is there another Naruhodo in my courtroom?
Actually, there isn't even a single Naruhodo in your courtroom.
Cousin Ryutaro, pull yourself together, please.
Alright, I've seen this countless times as a judicial assistant. Find inconsistencies in the witnesses' testimonies to prove that you're lying somehow. That's all there is to it. That's how a real lawyer would handle a cross-examination. So let's see what I can do.
Cross-examination. The witnessed scene. You know what? I just want to put it at the end, because... present. Post-mortem. A single, okay.
Objection!
Yeah.
That accusatory cry that just welled up into the deep inside of me, I think I could finally understand. Every time Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san have stood here at this bench, the stakes have been very, very high indeed. Well, what's the meaning of that menacing pose, counsel? I'd like the witness to clarify something for me. Who? What? Where? When? How? Not you, Sasaki-san. This query is directed at Inspector Hosonaga.
At me?
Your statement just now. You said the victim was stabbed multiple times.
Yes, that's right. As I said when I entered the hut, the defendant was already standing over the victim, bloody knife in hand like a murderous demon.
And yet, that cannot be.
What? Get to the point, please, counsel.
In the post-mortem report, it clearly states that the victim was stabbed one time only.
Oh.
In other words, Inspector Hosanaga's testimony is clearly flawed. And Sasaki-san,
Me?
you claim to have seen Mami-san in the throes of stabbing the victim. Yes I did. Wildly! But both you and the Inspector confirmed the same point. There was already blood on the knife that you saw the defendant holding.
Yes, and?
It's quite simple. You know the murder weapon was used to stab the victim only once, therefore, there's no way that there could have been blood on the knife if the single stabbing hadn't already occurred. Ah! True!
Then, what exactly is your contention, counsel? Are you ever going to tell us?
Yes, Your Excellency. There's only one logical conclusion. What Sasaki-san, in fact, saw was not the moment the defendant stabbed the victim at all, but the moment that the defendant, in fact, withdrew the blade from the victim's body.
That can't be! Excellent work, Sasato. You exploded at them with that objection, and then proceeded to pull them apart systematically.
Objection!
Well, this takes me back. Yes, I seem to remember your cousin staged a scene much like this in the trial 9 months ago. A half-witted child with a half-baked objection attempting to steal the show.
You're right. There were certain similarities. Except that so-called half-witted child managed to outwit the prosecution, who has only half a head of hair.
Slander! My head is quite adequately dressed. In any case, all this talk of stabbing with drawing and multiple wounds makes not a jot of difference. What? Why not? Engage your brain, young man. When the accused first plunged the deadly weapon into the victim, that was the fatal blow. It was that moment, just as she had withdrawn the blade ready for her next strike, the witnesses saw. The knife was already tainted with blood because the accused had already stabbed the victim. Ah! All you have successfully shown with your little display is that the mustached author is prone to moments of extravagance. Ah!
I am in agreement with the prosecution. If the defendant was seen wielding the blade at all, that is sufficient grounds for her actions to be viewed with suspicion.
But if she was withdrawing the blade, then we are back where we started. Sorry? Consider this, young yokel boy. The student girl is innocent as you claim, and why would she have pulled the blade from the victim, and with a demon's cold-blooded composure too? The prosecution demands an explanation, and it better be good. Why did Ray pull out the knife?
Ah, yes, going for the jugular.
What does father mean by that?
Let the court hear your answer then, counsel.
The truth is, I don't really know. But I have to come up with a plausible reason here, or we don't have a case. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife blade out of the victim's body was surely so she could stab her again.
Save her life.
According to the post-mortem report, the victim's death was not instant.
That's correct. It's though she would have remained unconscious for a short while after sustaining an injury.
Indeed, giving her the time to take hold of this piece of evidence that clearly indicates her killer. The point is, being a medical research assistant, Membami-san was compelled to act when faced with the wounded victim. Instinctively, she pulled the blade out in an attempt to save Miss Brett's life. Did you hear that, Your Excellency? It would seem that this is the best we can expect of this young yokel.
Indeed.
Is it just me, or does it suddenly feel much colder in here?
Your Excellency, if I may. Speak, witness. I would like another opportunity to testify. With respect to the slipshod assertion just put forward by the yokel defense counsel, I mean.
Slipshod? An excellent idea, Inspector. Our young yokel hopeful has a modicum of knowledge when it comes to the law, it seems. But in matters of medicine, he appears to possess not an iota of common sense.
Very well, Inspector, I will permit your request. You will testify again before the court on the subject of the defense counsel's assertion. Yes, sir, I will do so flawlessly. Witness testimony. Forensic medicine primer. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there are no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Let's not forget the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor.
Is what you said true, Inspector? Could pulling a knife from a wound really cause the wound to bleed heavily?
Yes, think of the weapon itself as a stopper in the wound that prevents excessive blood loss. Until a doctor is ready to provide proper treatment, that stopper shouldn't be removed.
Oh, I see. Ha! This is why yokels should stay on the farm. Even a quack from some obscure mountain village would have such basic knowledge. Anyone who's ever given someone a little poke with a knife and pulled it out again knows it. What? Oh, well, I've never stabbed anyone, you see. Or pulled a blade out of a wound, so...
Of course you haven't. I didn't bring you up to behave like a bandit.
Father, is it true, what they're telling me?
Yes, it's basic remedial knowledge for medics. Ray would have been well aware of it. If she were to claim ignorance of such fundamentals, that would prove fatal in many ways.
But then, would Ray have done it? Would she have pulled out that knife in full knowledge that it would be fatal for Miss Brett?
I don't know.
Ray never once mentioned anything about the knife to me. It seems almost impossible to believe, but could my friend actually have?
Sasato.
Yes?
Pull yourself together. We mustn't lose sight of why we're here.
Ah,
Counsel, it's time for your cross-examination.
oh, yes, Your Excellency.
However, I must warn you that if your cross-examination fails to identify any issue with the established facts, I will be moving to my adjudication immediately afterwards.
Understand. Believing in your clients and fighting for their cause until the bitter end. I knew it would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard.
Cross-examination. Forensic medicine primer. Let's see. Okay. Oops.
This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If Ray knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it.
Susato, it's at times like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals.
Fundamentals?
Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it?
Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already.
I've only been there once. I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You didn't take evidence at face value. You can and must examine it in greater detail, too.
Ah,
I realize this is your first time playing the role of a lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help.
examine the evidence in the court record. It's an idea, certainly. What should I do? I know what to do. Come to think of it, Kazuma-san and Naruhodo-san were always turning evidence over in their hands. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with A.
Ah, by the look in your eyes, I see it's coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue.
Yes, I'll do it straight away.
Wait, can I examine things again? Oh, not that. No. Oh, wait. Get to this now.
Ruckus English returnees tell all. This is the interview with you and Saseki-san, is it, father? Looks as though it was quite an exchange.
Yes, it became a little over-animated when he was talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture the moment his hand karate chopped me on the neck.
I do hope you weren't hurt.
I died.
This is the newspaper from Saseki-san. There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Yume University Research Laboratory. From Yume University's medical researcher. Father, isn't that your lab?
What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen.
It's this morning's paper that Saseki-san gave us.
How can you not know?
You saying you didn't know?
As embarrassing as this is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard of such a thing. Suspicious. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned this information? She did kill him.
Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning the story in our paper this morning, was there?
It's a highly toxic poison I've been working on in strictest confidence. I'd put Ray in charge of the project. She did do it.
Hey, she was managing it?
If what's written here is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. Moreover, the details were leaked somehow.
I don't believe it.
You need to read this article very carefully. Take a look at the pen.
Take off the pen's lid. Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we? This must be a little reservoir that holds ink.
Yes, if you fill it by drawing ink from the bottle up through the nib.
Something wrong, Father?
Yes, there doesn't actually appear to be any ink in there, that's all.
Oh yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose.
Fountain pen, RM.
There's some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't a Yume University one.
Must belong to some other organization, I suppose. Business of some kind. But that would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. So who else is RM? Oh.
The RM initials are very clearly engraved here.
And the fact that the Miss Brett was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is very clearly a message too.
To identify the killer, you mean?
I don't think there could be any doubt that this is a key piece of evidence in this case. RM. Who's an RM? Poison article. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. Following a lecture at Yume by Soseki Natsume on 11th of August, it's coming to light that a very disturbing incident took place. Deadly poison being secretly developed in the university's forensic science laboratory was stolen. Deadly in tiny quantities, even the smallest amount entering the body, either via the mouth or via a wound from a poison-laced blade, would prove fatal in minutes. Current methods cannot detect newly developed chemical. The university would have to be consulted. Why is the poison being developed? Onset of symptoms occur in minutes, starting with impaired breathing and ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. Such symptoms would be suggestive of this toxin. It's apparently an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids, and rumored to be commissioned by the military. Okay. Putting a blade. So here will be the poison.
Objection!
Oh, there's one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound.
What?
That yokel not only has a poor grasp of the law, but is also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified? It's here. This newspaper article. Article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial
Objection!
The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance to this case. But
Prosecutor Ouchie, he will let the defense speak.
But a newspaper article, the court cannot rely on the kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry.
Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion.
Your Excellency! Yes, of course. Thank you. I would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article where it says...
No? It's probably this one.
The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. The toxin enters the body on a knife laced with the poison. It's rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes.
Are you suggesting?
If the knife used to attack Miss Brett was laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Membami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible. Yes, the truth is, it's an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body.
What?
This is a complete and utter nonsense. Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility. Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was a hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document. Control F. Well, That's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold.
Objection!
Oh, please. This is clearly desperation. The weasel's last breaking of wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with the case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable in any way.
In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for her medical assistants to arrive. But instead you claim she suspected poisoning and took the potential lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicion then, or the argument makes no sense.
Exactly. Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, Yoko? Why did Ray suspect the stolen poison was involved? If you want the grounds, I'll give you grounds.
What?
You can't possibly.
From your expression, Counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value for our modern justice system. The court demands evidence.
Yes, Your Excellency. I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey.
In that case, Counsel, you will present the proof to the court now. What evidence demonstrates the clear link between this case and the poison in the newspaper article?
Take that!
I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction, was observed in the victim.
Ah.
Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please do tell me. Presumably, the fact that this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death.
Well, under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that's most certainly unusual, yes.
What are you doing, you yokel detective? In the newspaper article, there's the following information about the stolen poison. Onset symptoms occur in minutes, ending with acute contraction of the pupils prior to death. What? If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes have constricted severely.
Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without a doubt.
Prosecutor Ouchie, I think you'll agree. This is very compelling evidence.
You.
Yokel student and yokel professor!
I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions.
No.
Eugene Mikatoba. Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say.
Listen to the bumbling academic. Unaware of the theft of secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper.
I take full responsibility of the incompetence of my supervision.
Father. A pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students rather than allowing them to go off on drilling sprees. Oh, damn. That's totally unfounded. Hold it. I did it. None of this is Professor Mikatoba's fault. It's all my fault. Ray.
Remember, Misan, you stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated.
But it was me. I was the one who noticed the poison you were developing had been stolen that day.
What?
So you knew? I'd been placed in charge of overseeing the project. It was that day that Professor and Saseki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was.
Why didn't you let me know immediately?
I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So I decided to try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was. Thief? You don't mean... Yes, of course. It was the dainty Englishwoman.
Miss Giselle Brett.
That's why I decided to join a little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. She just sat on the stool in the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? Then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me and then collapsing on the floor.
Huh?
That's when I saw the knife in her back. Couldn't understand what just happened. Then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they'd shrunk to tiny pinpoints.
I don't believe it. In other words, you realized that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison.
My mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips whilst I'd been with her, which left only one possible way the poison to have entered her body. The blade of a knife in her back.
That train of thought was what spurred you to withdraw the blade.
Yes, if the amount had entered her bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's why I hoped. Really, Sorry for staying silent all this time.
Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you confessed in the end.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection!
Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Membami-san, if that's the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed. Well, I stabbed her. You have no answer because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
Objection!
But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you? Huh. Oh, I have evidence, and it's very much conclusive. Oh, huh? What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it.
You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Ouchi.
Perhaps some praise is due, young yokel student. What?
I had imagined there would be no need for me to submit this evidence.
But you've brought this on yourself. What the? Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air. The beach is almost palpable. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused murderer's nature, for it shows the precise moment that Membami-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back. No, that's not true, no! I don't believe it. Ah!
Order, order, order. Counsel for the defense, was it you who was responsible for that shrill screech that just pierced my courtroom?
Perhaps his voice is yet to break. These yokels are slow of mind and slow to mature. I'll show you who's slow to mature.
Careful now. Sasato is starting to show her face here. It is often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have ample proof. The court will now accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence. Photoshop, it was all photoshopped.
Can't believe he's had to photograph like this up to his sleeve this entire time. Such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took the photograph? Huh? Ray.
Objection!
That's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention. Oh!
Objection!
That's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to the Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony. Ah!
I will uphold the defense's demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once.
Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Pardon? You see, this print arrived in the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday, but there was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of that print is unknown.
Goodness.
Are we to understand then, counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact that this photograph has the unmurkiest of origins, you are nevertheless believe it fit for submission as evidence in the Supreme Court?
When you first produced that print before, I noticed that you hesitated for a brief moment, because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, did you?
Silence, you yokel student blabbery professor. What matters is the blatant truth that this print so eloquently expresses. But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment the knife was plunged into the victim's back, but the moment it was withdrawn. Don't waste the court's time with your ramblings.
Indeed, without knowledge of who produced this print, we have no means of verifying the claim. And the scene it captures is without doubt the most compelling evidence presented to the court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light on the matter, I believe the conclusion is clear.
Oh no.
Sasato, this is the time for you to fight. If what you've established so far is true, then there can be no doubt. This photograph shows the moment that Ray withdrew the blade from the victim.
Oh, yes, we just need to prove that somehow.
Shh.
You'll have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to the provinces. And to rue the day you came up against Taketsuchi Ouchi at the court of law. If I can't determine who took this photograph, then the trial's going to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be a way of working out who took it.
Well, counsel?
Your Excellency, the burning question is who took the photograph, and the truth is,
I have an answer.
This isn't about whether I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took the dramatic photographic print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal. What? No, you can't possibly. But as you boldly claim that you can, please do enlighten us. Fortunately, I'm unable to present a name. How utterly underwhelming. Do you wonder? However, I am able to present evidence. The defense has a piece of evidence that reveals important details about the photographer's identity. What?
Very well then, counsel. Present your proof to the court. Which piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the identity of the mystery photographer? cool. Oh. Is it gonna be... Wait, this? The same color? Oh. No. What's the police? Two people. I was thinking it was gonna be Sosuke. Might be this.
Take that!
What is that? The newspaper again. Raucous England attorneys tell all.
It's not the headlight that's relevant here, Your Excellency. It's the photograph.
Oh, it has that crack.
If you look at it closely, you'll notice that there are some white lines on the right-hand side.
Ah, yes indeed. It had already caught my eye, as it happens.
What of it? A shadow of some kind, presumably? From the branches of a tree, or the like?
There are no trees growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you.
Now, if you look closely at this photograph...
Good gracious.
Yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph too.
Objection!
Well, that tells us nothing. Ha! Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, and definitely from the branches of a tree.
Shadow inside a...
There wouldn't be any trees growing inside a hut at the beach, Council.
What's quite remarkable about this is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have transpired?
The curious matching pattern that disappears on both photographic prints is a result of the camera defect. Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera to take the photographs. With the photographic device.
Yes, we can confidently say that the camera's lens must be scratched. And that the scratched lens causes unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device.
Short, two photographs under consideration here. Taken with the same camera. But there must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one.
Objection!
I think you're forgetting, Prosecutor Ouchie, that one of the photographs featured in the newspaper article. Newspaper? Ah. That's right. The author of this article is the mystery witness to this crime. What? What? Menu.
What? What is that? I see why you were called a raucous England returnee.
What are you yelling about? You've already testified. It's Many Memo, I tell you. Many Memo. Many Memo. Sasaki-san. What was that? Did you say Many Memo?
Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from Shoyu News has been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Raiten Many Memo. Yes, hounding me from dawn till dusk.
Ah, now that you mention it. They secretly spy snapshots, scribble stories, and scruper my privacy.
Who is that? Oh, he has that same band as the thing. Her pen. Many Memo.
Could that same reporter be? Camera to the left of him, a notebook to the right. There I am, stuck in the middle with Raiten Many Memo.
Raiten Many Memo. Oh, writing many memos. So, you're saying the picture was taken by...
By many memo, yes. My lord, your excellency, Esquire.
Officer, find this newspaper reporter at once and bring him to my courtroom. We will adjourn for a short recess in the meantime.
Oh, yes, your excellency. Yes, you say, your excellency.
And one more thing. I want this knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. You will solicit the assistance of the Imperial University's medical department for the task. Understood.
Praise the sun. Meh. Many memo.
Alright, I think we'll end it here, and then next time we'll continue the trial. Thanks for watching, don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe. See ya.